Ever slipped on a t-shirt with a cool design and thought, how'd they do that?
Yeah.
I know I have. Today's deep dive, we're getting behind the scenes, talking about the Printing Textile Technicians, the folks who make those awesome prints happen. We've got a whole bunch of resources from RoleCatcher, career guides, interview tips, all that jazz, to give you the inside scoop on this cool blend of artistry and technology. Whether you're thinking about this career or just curious like me, we've got you covered.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating field. A lot more to it than you might think, actually.
That's what I'm hoping to find out.
Yeah.
So let's start basic. What exactly is a printing textile technician?
Basically, it's all about taking those creative designs you see and, well, making them real on fabric, like the bridge between the artist's idea and the final product you wear. And RoleCatcher's guide, it says they've got a surprising range of things they're responsible for.
Okay, like what? Give me the rundown.
Well, it's not just, pushing buttons. These technicians are prepping the printing machines, making sure they're calibrated. Then there's the whole art of mixing dyes and inks to get those colors just right. And of course, huge part is quality control, making sure every single print meets the standard.
So I'm imagining there's a lot of precision involved. Not just an eye for color, but a really technical mind too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's where the problem solving comes in.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher really emphasizes how adaptable you have to be in this job. Machines aren't always predictable. Designs get complex. You got to be able to find solutions, and fast.
I bet that gets pretty intense, especially when you've got deadlines coming up.
Oh, for sure. But that's what makes the career path itself so interesting. The guide, it breaks it down into 4 stages, starting entry level. That's where you're learning everything, often working under more senior technicians.
Okay, so like an apprenticeship, soaking up knowledge from the pros. Then what?
As you get that experience, you move into more independent roles. You're overseeing maybe specific parts of the printing process, and eventually, you could be managing entire printing operations, leading teams of people, even getting into research and development. Imagine that, experimenting with brand new printing techniques, maybe even inventing your own.
Wow, that's some serious career progression. From hands-on printing to leading the innovation charge, there's a lot of potential in this field. But like any job, I'm sure there are some downsides too. Give me the good with the bad.
Oh, absolutely. The guide's pretty honest about things. They mention long hours, often working under pressure to meet those deadlines. It's physically demanding, and obviously you've got to be on top of safety precautions when you're working with, inks and chemicals.
Right, so it's not all just creative buzz. Takes stamina and being okay with pressure.
Exactly. And the industry itself, it's always changing. One of the biggest things we see in these resources is the impact of digital printing. It's really revolutionizing how things are done, making it, I'd say, more high-tech than ever.
That is fascinating. So someone entering this field now would be coming in at a really exciting time with digital printing, opening up all kinds of possibilities. Almost feels like those who really embrace these changes, they'll have a real advantage.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty accurate way to put it. And it's not just the digital printing side of things either. The guide also talks about how important sustainability is becoming in the industry.
Right, makes sense.
Consumers are more eco-conscious, and that's definitely impacting how textiles are printed.
So having a good understanding of sustainability, that could be a real asset for anyone in this field. You're not just a technician, but a forward-thinking innovator.
Absolutely. And, speaking of standing out, getting a job in this field is tough. It's competitive. RoleCatcher, they used a really powerful phrase to describe the current job market. They said, recruitment is increasingly dominated by automation, making it more like a lottery.
Whoa, okay. So how do you even start to stand out? Like all this talk about automation, it's kind of scary. You could have all the right skills, the passion, but still get lost in the system.
Right, it's a real concern.
So how do you, as they say, beat the algorithm?
Well, that's where a platform like RoleCatcher can be really helpful, actually. It's not just sending out a resume and hoping for the best, They've got these tools to help you optimize your application, make sure it's highlighting the skills employers actually want to see.
Okay, so it's like having a strategy, knowing the rules of the game before you even start playing.
Yeah.
But it's not just about getting noticed, right? What happens when you actually land an interview?
Oh, yeah, that's where the real preparation comes in. And RoleCatcher, they've got you covered there, too. They've got, sample interview questions and stuff designed to be what you'd actually get asked in a real interview.
I've always thought practicing with questions like that is so important. It's easy to know your stuff in theory, but being able to talk about it under pressure is a whole other thing. Did any of the sample questions stand out to you?
Yeah, definitely. Some were super technical, of course, testing if you knew the ins and outs of different printing processes or like how you would troubleshoot a specific problem. But honestly, what I found most interesting was how much they focused on problem solving and thinking critically. Even though it's a creative field, those skills are clearly super important.
Oh, I bet. It's one thing to follow a design perfectly, but what happens when the ink isn't behaving or a machine starts acting up?
Exactly. One question that stuck with me was like, imagine a huge order is due and all of a sudden the red ink starts printing blurry. How would you figure out what's wrong and get things running smoothly again?
Wow, talk about pressure. That really tests everything, not just your knowledge, but also how well you handle pressure. What else did they focus on?
Communication was another big one. There are a lot of questions about explaining something technical to someone who doesn't know anything about printing, like a client maybe, or a designer. It really shows you how important collaboration is in this kind of role.
Makes sense. You're not just working with machines, you're working with people too. You need those, what they call soft skills, to bridge that gap between the creative vision and making it actually happen.
Exactly.
So it's more than just mastering the printing press. It's mastering communication, collaboration, being able to adapt.
Exactly. And with everything changing so fast in this industry, the digital printing, the sustainability focus, employers are really looking for people who aren't afraid to keep learning and adapting.
You've got to be forward thinking, always trying to improve things, whether it's finding new techniques or more sustainable ways of doing things. Almost like the ideal candidate isn't just keeping up with the industry, but helping to shape its future.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And speaking of the future, I think it's time we zoomed out a bit.
You mean like the future of textile printing itself, where it's all headed?
Exactly. We touched on how digital printing is changing things, but what's next?
What's next? That's the big question, isn't it? It's like we're on the verge of something huge.
Yeah.
But what could be bigger than digital printing changing everything?
Well, digital printing, it's amazing, but it's true. It is just the beginning. Think about what other tech is out there. All this stuff pushing boundaries that we haven't even thought of for textiles.
Well, 3D printing comes to mind. I mean, it's
Right.
being used for everything these days. Prosthetics, houses. Why not fabrics with crazy textures and patterns? Even whole garments printed at once, no seams.
There you go. That's the kind of thinking this industry needs more of. Imagine if designers could print these custom fabrics, 3D structures, whatever they want, even personalized clothes to your exact measurements. The possibilities are huge.
Okay, that is seriously cool. But it can't just be about what's possible, right? We've got to think about the planet too. We talked about sustainability being more important. But even with all this innovation, how can textile printing become even more eco-friendly?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's not even just about the inks and dyes being eco-friendly, it's the whole process. How do we use less water, create less waste? What about new materials that can biodegrade?
Right, it's about choices that are good for the planet and good for business.
Yeah.
People care about this stuff now. Makes sense for the industry to be leading the way.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this whole career path so interesting, don't you think? It's not just the technical stuff, it's about being part of something new and innovative.
Totally. It's about bringing together creativity, tech, and caring for the environment, all to shape how we think about fashion and clothes.
I couldn't have put it better myself.
So there you have it. Never thought a simple t-shirt could lead to such big questions, honestly. But there's so much to discover about printing textile technicians. It's a job with creativity, tons of potential, especially for folks who love tech, sustainability, and pushing boundaries.
Yeah, and for anyone listening who's ready to jump in, remember what we learned, do your research, build those skills, and let that passion shine. The future's waiting to be made, and you could be the one to make it happen.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we're wrapping up this deep dive. Check out the show notes for all those links we mentioned, including RoleCatcher's platform. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and who knows, maybe we'll be seeing your designs on the runway one day.